The story begins with a young woman named Renee. She always wanted to be pretty, like all the other girls. Life just seemed so much easier for them. On top of that, she struggled with obesity, so she decided it was time to hit the gym and make some changes. When she first walked in, the women working at the gym were confused. Only hot girls usually came to that place. Renee began preparing for her first workout, but the moment she saw all those perfect bodies surrounding her, she instantly felt demotivated. Still, she didn't give up. She got on a bike, but it couldn't quite support her weight. She ended up hurting her private parts. Embarrassed and in pain, she quickly left the gym. Renee spent hours watching makeup and hair tutorials, trying so hard to be beautiful. But for her, beauty didn't come naturally. Even saying hello to babies at the supermarket made her feel ugly. Every day, Renee stood in front of the mirror, hoping that one day she could be pretty. She worked in a basement office, managing the website for the cosmetics company Lily Leclerc. She had always dreamed of working in the main building, but only pretty girls worked up there. She complains to her colleague Mason about how they shouldn't be hidden away in the basement. But unlike her, Mason is perfectly happy with his job. This is me right now, editing this video. Please subscribe. Every night, Renee hangs out with her only two friends, Vivian and Jane. Tonight, they decide to take a picture and post it on a dating site, hoping to attract some men. They take a bunch of photos and finally choose the best one to upload. The next day at work, Mason tells her she needs to deliver some paperwork to Lily Leclerc upstairs. Renee isn't thrilled. She didn't shower that morning, but she agrees to do it anyway. As she steps into the big, shiny office space, she's surrounded by gorgeous, well-dressed women. She's completely awestruck when she spots Avery Leclerc, the CEO of the company and granddaughter of the legendary Lily Leclerc. Renee drops off the paperwork and casually asks the receptionist how amazing it must be to work there. The receptionist tells her that she's just a temp filling in, and that they're actually looking for someone permanent. Later that night, while watching a movie, Renee suddenly gets an idea. She runs through the rain to the wishing fountain and, with her lucky coin in hand, makes a wish to be beautiful. She tosses the coin into the fountain, but when she checks her reflection in a tiny mirror, nothing has changed. The next day, Renee decides to give the gym one more shot. As she's cycling, the coach delivers a motivational speech, saying, "The next time you look in the mirror, you're not going to see yourself. You're going to see who you've always wanted to be." Something about that hits Renee hard. She's so motivated that she starts pedaling like crazy, until she breaks the bike, falls off, hits her head, and gets knocked unconscious. A while later, she wakes up and starts staring at her arms. Then she checks out her entire body. She even grabs a random girl nearby and makes her feel her abs. She rushes to the mirror, and suddenly, she doesn't see herself as she is. She sees herself as a beautiful, attractive woman with tight body. Her energy shoots through the roof. She feels like for the first time in her life, everyone is finally noticing her. Fueled by this new confidence, she heads straight to Lily Leclerc to apply for the receptionist job. Later that night, she visits her friends, excitedly claiming that she's still their friend Renee, and that she can prove it. She tells them things only Renee would know, totally unaware that everyone still sees her exactly as she was before. She even calls in sick the next morning, convinced no one at work would recognize her. As she starts listing off every illness she can think of, a guy behind her softly laughs. Renee immediately assumes he's flirting. She tells him he's probably just shy because she's so beautiful, then boldly grabs his phone and puts her number in it. And he introduces himself as Ethan. Later, while hanging out with her friends again, they check the dating site and see they've gotten 0 views. But Renee insists that's just because of her old self. She's convinced that if they take new photos, she'll now attract tons of men. Her plan? Rent a Lamborghini, wear a bikini, and make it happen. When the time comes for Renee's interview for the receptionist position, the woman working at the front desk is confused. Only hot girls work here. But despite her doubts, Renee sits down with Avery Leclerc and her colleague Helen. Renee tells them she works for Lily Leclerc as a website manager, but that someone with her kind of beauty shouldn't be hidden away in the basement. Avery and Helen are both perplexed. But things get even more confusing when Renee casually mentions that one day, she's going to be a model, and it would be risky for them to lose a receptionist like her. She continues, saying her dream is to help people feel the way she feels right now, confident, powerful, and beautiful. Despite her unconventional approach, Avery is drawn to her energy, and, surprisingly, Renee gets the job. The next day, Renee walks into the office in slow motion, radiating energy and happiness. She's so thrilled to be there, and her presence doesn't go unnoticed. She even catches the eye of Grant Leclerc, Avery's brother. He's amazed when she pulls out his favorite drink, something she had seen him holding in pictures, so she brought it in case he ever stopped by. Renee adds with a smirk that she's also seen him holding Brazilian models, but they wouldn't fit in a mini fridge. After a series of awkward moments, Renee brings drinks to one of Avery's meetings with her co-workers. She accidentally knocks over one girl's makeup set. Embarrassed, she drops to her knees to pick up the packaging and starts looking for the application brush. Avery quietly informs her, "There is no brush," then adds, "If you'd ever bought our product, you'd know it never comes with one." Trying to escape the awkwardness, Renee shrugs it off, but to her surprise, Avery actually wants to hear her opinion. Renee explains, "Well, I just think that with such an expensive product, it should come with a brush. Girls use it on their way to work, and when there's no brush, they end up applying it with their fingers, and it never looks right." Avery considers it for a moment, and then thanks her. Sometime later, Renee calls Ethan, the guy she met at the store just the other day. She tells him he's probably too intimidated to call her, thinking she's out of his league, so she's just taking the pressure off. The next day, Renee lands a date with Ethan. They start hitting it off, really getting to know each other, until he points out that that was his hot dog, and that she ate both of them. Renee quickly changes the subject and says they need to go to a bikini contest. Ethan says he's fine with it as long as she's comfortable. There will be a lot of beautiful women walking around in bikinis, but Renee surprises him. She wants to compete. When he tries to gently tell her it might not be the best idea, she assumes he's just jealous that other guys will be staring at her. In the middle of his confusion, she suddenly asks, "Do I look better with shoes on or shoes off?" He pauses, then answers honestly, "I don't think it's gonna make a dramatic difference." When the competition began, waves of stunning women strutted across the stage, soaking up the roaring cheers from the male crowd. Ethan, standing stiff in the corner, started sweating nervously. Then the host announced one final late-entry contestant. All eyes turned as Renee stepped out, radiating confidence. Without hesitation, she snatched the mic from the host and introduced herself to the bewildered audience. There was a brief pause, confusion sweeping over the crowd, while Ethan silently wished he could disappear. But Renee wasn't fazed. She turned to the DJ, shouted for him to hit it. She started with a little twerking, and began dancing. Her energy lit up the entire room. Bold, electric, and completely unapologetic, she owned every step. Pulled out a couple of sexy moves we all wish we didn't see. She even poured water over herself mid-performance, singing and dancing like she belonged on that stage. Ethan, still in shock, couldn't help but smile. Somewhere in the chaos, he was falling for her. By the end of the show, one of the other glamorous girls was crowned the winner. Later, the host pulled Ethan aside and quietly admitted that Renee had absolutely crushed it. The only reason the other girl won? She was his niece. Renee emerged glowing. She told Ethan she came in second place, which, in her words, was even better, because it came with 2 free drinks and an appetizer. The next day at work, Avery approached Renee with a challenge. They needed to boost sales. Her plan was to bring in a typical hot girl to promote the product, but Renee wasn't impressed. She explained that when regular girls go to buy makeup, they're often surrounded by flawless-looking women. "With your pimples and asymmetrical face," she said, "it's easy to feel like you're already losing before you even try. That's why so many women prefer anonymous stores. Just grab what you need and get out." Renee's honesty hit a nerve, in a good way. She realized this was exactly what the brand had been missing, a voice that understood their real customers. She invited Renee to a private dinner with her grandmother. Renee, stunned and honored, accepted. After work, she met up with Ethan for their second date. This time, things felt deeper. As the night went on, he confessed how much he truly liked her. Their chemistry sparked, and their evening ended at her apartment, where their first kiss quickly turned into something more. The next evening, Renee and Ethan arrived at the dinner, held in an exclusive private dining room. Awaiting them at the long, elegant table was the entire Leclerc family. While Renee excitedly poured out her ideas to Lily Leclerc over dinner, Ethan sat quietly nearby, watching Grant Leclerc like a hawk, subtly mimicking his every move in a clumsy attempt to fit in. Lily, listening intently to Renee, eventually admitted that Avery's lifestyle had become too far removed to truly connect with the women they were trying to reach. She believed Renee had something real, something rare, and invited her to join them in Boston to help present their new product line. Renee, stunned and thrilled, accepted without hesitation. As time passed, however, something in Renee began to shift. Her confidence, once inspiring, started tipping into arrogance. She stopped hanging out with her old friends, choosing instead to spend her time with her glamorous colleagues. At work, she ignored the everyday women she used to relate to, focusing her attention only on the flawless, runway-ready types. The final straw came at a bar, when she publicly embarrassed Vivian and Jane in front of some guys they'd met on a dating app. Soon after, she boarded the Leclerc family's private jet, heading to Boston. Upon arrival, She was ushered into a lavish apartment. As she prepared her speech for the upcoming product launch, there was a knock on her door. It was Grant. He explained that Avery had blocked all room charges from his suite and asked if he could use her apartment to order food. While waiting, the conversation turned casual, then playful. Grant began complimenting her, and before long he was openly flirting. Renee felt a strange sense of disbelief. Never in her life had she imagined someone like Grant LeClaire hitting on her. Just as their faces inched closer for a kiss, her phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. Guilt surged through her. She quickly told Grant she needed to use the bathroom. Once inside, she stood before the mirror, staring at her reflection, whispering to herself over and over, "Who are you?" Suddenly, Grant called from the other room. She spun around and slammed her head into the glass shower door. Everything went black. She woke up hours later, groggy and disoriented. Realizing she was already late for the presentation, panicked, she rushed to the hotel lobby, only to run into Mason. He asked if she was okay, but Renee couldn't believe he recognized her. She sprinted to a mirror and froze. It was gone. The magic, the beauty, the illusion. She stared at her reflection in horror, screaming that it had vanished. Heartbroken and confused, she handed Mason her speech and begged him to deliver it to Avery. Then she boarded the first plane home, feeling like everything she'd built had just crumbled. The next morning, she woke up to a flood of missed calls from Avery and a voicemail. Avery had given the speech herself. It hadn't landed the same way. It hadn't felt right coming from her. They had a much bigger presentation coming up, and Avery made it clear they needed Renee. Suddenly, Ethan called her on video. Renee quickly dropped out of camera view, afraid he'd see her the way she now saw herself. She told him she was sick and promised to call soon. That evening, she went to apologize to her friends, but they were clearly upset. They had company over, and when she tried to speak to them, they just brushed her off. Alone and heavy with guilt, Renee felt like she had lost everything: her friends, her confidence, and Ethan. She went to a bar where she was supposed to meet him, but sat at a different table, believing he wouldn't recognize her anymore. He saw her, confused, and while she sat just a few feet away, she texted him that she was still stuck at work. Ethan approached her, asking if she was single. She told him she had a boyfriend. He played along, saying he had a girlfriend too, and that she was the most beautiful woman in the world. Thinking he didn't recognize her, Renee got overwhelmed and ran out in tears. Later, she called Ethan and told him it was over between them. Ethan, confused and trying to understand, apologized if he had done something wrong, but Renee told him he'd never see her again and hung up. Walking alone through the city, she looked up at the building where she used to work. An idea sparked in her mind. The next morning, Renee went to the gym, trying to recreate the magic that once changed everything, but nothing happened. In the dressing room, she saw a girl crying. When Renee asked what was wrong, the girl said her boyfriend had left her. Renee, confused by her beauty, asked how that was possible. The girl explained that she had always been insecure about herself. That moment made Renee feel just a little bit better. She called Mason, and together, they snuck into the building where the product presentation was being held. As Avery stepped on stage and began her speech, Mason cut the lights from the tech room. Avery, confused, walked off stage. Music began to play. Renee tried to make a big entrance, once, then again, and again. Finally, she walked in like herself. She faced the crowd and began to speak. "Most of you know me as this woman, glamorous, flawless, perfect," she said, pointing to a photo. "But actually, this is the real me." The crowd seemed confused. "These two women?" she said. "They look nothing alike, but they're both me." She turned and looked at the images again, finally realizing that they are the same. This whole time there was no magic. Everything she accomplished, she did by being herself. With new confidence, she told the audience that women should never lose their sense of worth, no matter how they look. That no product can change your life. Only you can do it. But this product, she said, was for every girl who was ready to believe in herself. The crowd went wild. Avery was stunned and proud. Lily congratulates Avery because Renee was her first choice, while Renee goes to hug her friends. After the presentation, Renee went straight to Ethan's apartment. Speaking through the intercom, she apologized. Ethan, already watching her through the building's security camera, saw her picking her nose nervously. Smiling, he ran downstairs to help her get that thing out. They kissed, and that's where the film ends. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video. Thanks for watching.